Noisy chatter fills the streets as everyone stares at the pair, wondering if the Duke actually sent kids. Fiona notes as she walks by how uncomfortable this is and how obvious the people's reactions are. She then begins to feel like Abel should have left this duty to an adult like Jaren and not her. She then decides to stop thinking about needless things and just to focus on completing the assignment, which is dishing out punishment. She then stands and ponders about what punishment to give, since the severity is also important as well. Punishing the mercenaries for the crime will be an example to the others about what happens when they act out of line. If this goes well, this will keep public order, but if it doesn't, the opposite will occur. With no real tough consequences, it will cause others to wonder if they can act out as well. Fiona continues to ponder what punishment would be fitting for this region, since stealing already results in hands getting chopped. She then grimly wonders aloud if they should chop a certain body part, since the mercenaries love harassing women and children. Sigrun asks what she plans to chop, to which she tells him it is nothing. She then ponders about banishing the buffoons outside the walls where all the monsters roam. She then decides to give the idiots the option to choose between the two before Sigrun calls her name, alerting her that they have arrived. People continue to chatter about how a tiny girl is sent to represent the Duke. A maddened Sigrun begins to tell the citizens to get the hell out of the way before Fiona jumps in to calm him down. The man nervously agrees to stand aside before Sigrun asks Fiona why she isn't angry in these situations. She tells him anger won't solve anything before someone shouts at the two to wait. A girl then grabs onto Fiona's shoulder to talk to her, which angers Sigrun before Fiona tells him it is okay. The girl tells Fiona that she's not sure how Fiona got the responsibility to handle this, but the mercenaries cannot be easily dealt with. Fiona then responds that letting the mercenaries continue to run rampant like this will make the villagers uncomfortable. The lady then says that she does not want to see a child go against dangerous men before Fiona asks for her name, to which the girl says Charlotte. Fiona then thanks the lady for worrying about her before telling Sigrun to continue forward. A loud scream can be heard before Fiona and Sigrun arrive at the center. They stare at the mercenaries who are arguing with the soldiers to let them go. Fiona notes that one of them is strong, since multiple guards have to restrain him. That man then says that it's the brat again before calling Sigrun a rice worm and saying it's a surprise that the kid is alive. Fiona then grabs onto Sigrun's hand as she tells him to relax. Fiona then steps directly in front of that man and begins to think about how this man bullied Sigrun and the villagers with this strength. She also notes that this man is evil, since he has pretty much committed every crime except for murder. She then speaks, stating that she is here in the name of the Duke and that the fools should stop pointlessly struggling. This angers the man, who shouts, wondering how a kid is bossing him around. The man then asks what the town will do after this mercenary group leaves and asks who it was that defended them from the monsters. He then calls the crowd ungrateful, which angers them. Fiona then realizes that this is going nowhere before casting a spell with her hands as lightning then viciously strikes the ground right next to the man. As the ground next to him crumbles, the man is shocked and confused as he stares in dismay. Murmur goes through the crowd as the man then falls back. Fiona then proceeds to walk towards him again and says it would have been nice if they just listened to her from the start. She then notices that not everyone is on the floor before clapping her hands, and lightning repositions the mercenaries. Fiona then brushes off her hands and says she'll leave it at that, as the mercenaries are comically trembling on the ground. She then laughs just like how Abel would as she tells the idiots to keep kneeling on the ground. Fiona pulls out a stack of papers before saying that since everyone is quiet now, she can begin to read the legal proceedings. She then begins to talk to the mercenaries about an incident at the pub 3 days ago, while Sigrun stares from the side. He has now accepted the fact that the brat he knew actually was a mage who has been fighting at the second wall. He also notes that Fiona is on a whole nother level from the mages he had seen at the guild, who can barely throw fireballs. As he continues to look on, Sigrun thinks he finally understands why Duke Halen wants to keep Fiona around and what the Duke is aiming to do. With a young girl standing so confidently in front of tough men, the people will easily remember this sight. This will cause a rumor about Fiona's impressive power to spread through the land. Sigrun also notes that the Duke has been treating Fiona too well for a simple soldier, even giving her snacks. Sigrun knows the Duke is not the type to do this stuff for no reason, and wonders what he actually wants from Fiona. Sigrun then thinks that he'll never truly know any of this, as he is just an orphan from a mercenary squad, and that he cannot do anything for Fiona because of this as well. He wonders if he'll ever see her face again, and despite saying they'd be friends, he thinks she'll forget someone like him once they return to the castle. Fiona then raises her hand with 2 fingers to tell the mercenaries how many options they have. She tells them the first is to walk out the walls of the castle naked, which shocks the dudes. She then deviously says that the second option is that part before she proceeds to point at something. She then brightly smiles as she says to cut it off. Sigrun has a shocked expression on his face, which can be seen on the mercenaries' faces as well. Fiona leans her head to the side and wonders if people expected the punishment to not be this wild. Fiona then claps her hands again to tell the mercenaries that she is giving them mercy by allowing them to choose, as one man stares in anger. He then shouts, asking why they have to suffer such a punishment, before talking about how his men shouldn't have been associated with the uncivilized and savage northerners anyways. He then says, without his mercenaries' protection, the villagers would have been in a beast's belly already. Fiona then says the mercenary will be reimbursed for their work before noting to herself that the Duke is cold, but also fair. He rewards these people for fending off monsters, and they get to keep the monster's valuable loop drop as well. In the end, what Fiona's trying to say is that everyone that gathers here is seeking profit. The Duke Halen needs more men to help protect his land, and the mercenaries need money, so it's a fair trade. Fiona then angrily walks toward him, saying that if they don't decide, she'll do it randomly for them. The man tells her to untie him immediately, as Fiona decides to herself to end this quickly for everyone's sake as it is cold. She thinks to herself about how she honestly has been shivering and wonders why everyone is silent now. She continues to think that the temperature must have dropped while Sigrun stares as somebody strolls past him before soldiers march in as well. Abel stands directly over Fiona and asks the brutes what they have decided. Fiona turns to say his name as he then stares at her. She then realizes that his presence must have made things cold before asking what brings him here. Abel asks if he needs a reason to look over his land as Jaren mouths an apology to Fiona. As Fiona begins to respond, she is picked off her feet, and then Abel asks her what choices she gave them. Fiona then asks him from what point did he start listening in. He tells her from when uncivilized and savage northerners was said to, which Fiona thinks about how royally screwed the mercenaries are now, and that they'd be lucky to be half alive. She tells him she gave them 2 options, which are to walk outside the wall naked, or cut that one part that helps reproduce. He tells her he likes them both, but then questions why they are being given an option. She tells him that both would be too harsh before wondering if she was too considerate. This all causes the Duke to let out a kind of scary smirk. He says consideration is worthless and then steps forward saying that insects who mess with his people are not needed. He then proceeds to stomp on the you-know-where before digging his foot in deeper as the man wails. Narrator interjection here, but I can feel this through the screen right now. As she sits in his arms, she notes that his bloodlust is giving her goosebumps, as Abel then says that since the man called his land savage, he as the Duke must live up to that claim. He removes his foot and tells his man to cut off the part responsible for the crimes and then chase these guys outside the wall. He then turns to leave with Fiona in his arms as he tells his men to get to it immediately. He then tells her to not worry about needless things next time. She then says that she understands and thinks to herself about how Abel is a vicious man. Her eyes then flash as she wonders something. Why did Abel with his dirty personality even bother to come out here? Later, we see Jaren talking to Fiona saying that the Duke came out here because he was worried about her. Fiona questions this before saying that the world ending tomorrow is more believable. We then see that Sigrun, Jaren, and Fiona are rolling up large balls of snow. Jaren continues that the Duke has a twisted personality that's usually more bad than good, and that it may be difficult to understand the Duke sometimes. But it was true that he came here out of worry, as he had not planned to have Fiona complete this task originally. Fiona then asks if Abel planned on coming just to observe, to which Jaren says the Duke does not leave matters in the hands of those he needs to observe. Jaren then switches the subject and then tells Fiona to start being more confident. He tells her he does not know what Abel is thinking, but he's sure Fiona will find out soon. Jaren then tells the pair he's going to get them something warm to drink, and that they should go ahead and finish the snowman without him. Fiona tells him okay and stands confused, wondering if Abel was worried. She then decides to not overthink this and continues to play with Sigrun. She then shouts at him to help her combine the head with the body, to which he says okay. He then plops the snowball on top of the other before Fiona says she'll smoothen it. She hums as she does so, with Sigrun nervously staring at her. He then asks her what she will be doing from now on, to which she says she'll continue living like this for a while. Her red eyes stare as he begins to mumble something and continues to look at him before asking what did he say. He then openly asks if she is going to go, to which she asks where. He is then seen blushing as he grits his teeth. He then stands right in front of her, shouting if she is going to come visit him. Fiona, in shock, blinks as she is flustered and stares at his face and wonders if Sigrun just asked if she will visit him. She then says his name before he turns, covering his face, and says whatever, and that he did not mean to make things complicated. He then clenches his fist and tells her he knows that he was just a charity case to her. He continues to say that he is just saying stupid things now before Fiona grabs his hand. She then tells him that he is not a charity and that she will come visit him. Sigrun is shocked as he internally shouts hands as Fiona continues that she'll visit every day. He then tells her there is no need to come often, to which she asks, wasn't she the one that said they should be friends? She then says that in that case she'll make sure to visit no matter what. She asks if he got that, to which he stands speechless. The silence then ensues as they hold hands before Fiona wonders if she said something weird as he is not responding. She then notes that this is so awkward, so she will just start counting sheep. Sigrun then calls her name before saying that for now she should be the one visiting him, to which she says, of course. She realizes that he's saying this because he cannot simply just visit her at the castle. He then says that he will be working hard so that he can be the one to visit her someday. He continues that since they are friends, he cannot expect her to come to him all the time, and that it'd be exhausting. Fiona then realizes in her mind that Halen Castle is not easy to enter, so Sigrun must be intending to climb up to a high position in the Halen territory just to come visit her. He then tells her that she probably does believe in what he is saying since he is an orphan, to which she says she does believe in him. She tells him that he will definitely be able to do that, and not only that, but in time there is so much more to come for him. She tells him that he will grow up with a bright future with a happy life, wealth, honor, power, and even a lover that can heal his wounded heart. She promises him that before stating that she will be there to help him attain it as well. She recalls to herself that she pledged to help him the day she saw the scars, and now this day in winter as well. She then tells him they should finish the snowman as Jaren arrives with the warm drinks. We later see a large snowman and a mini snowman were both made as Fiona mentions she has now truly become Sigrun's friend. Many days then pass from this moment as a time skip of 5 years now occurs. Fiona yells, "Oh geez," at how cold it is before casting a spell. She then wonders to herself if she was crazy for making Halen have never-ending winters. She shivers to herself as we can see she has grown up and is wearing a red coat and shouts that it's cold. She notes how it's already been 5 years since she got here but is still hopeless against the cold. She is now 18 years of age. She continues to rub herself due to the cold before a soldier shouts at her to focus on the surroundings. He continues saying that if she keeps acting like this, what will she do when the monsters come? She then stares and wonders if this is his first time in battle, and if his name is Alan before telling him to not worry as she is focused enough. She then flicks her hand before lightning rains down on the battlefield as a beast shouts in pain. The soldier covers his mouth in shock as the beast then drops to the ground. She notes that they'd have been in trouble if she didn't spot that. She then tells Alan to stop worrying about her and scan the battlefield himself, or else he will end up as dinner. The guy is now trembling as Fiona realizes he is more scared than ever now and wonders if she should calm him down. She then grabs the soldier and tells him not to be scared as she is here and will make sure that he stays safe. She then smiles before telling him to work hard together. The soldier is speechless and muttering something as he has fallen in love. He then shouts Lady Fiona as someone just then takes off the monster's head, which causes Alan to back off to a tree. Fiona is annoyed and tells the person that if he keeps doing that, her efforts to calm Alan down will be for nothing. She tells the guy to cut Alan some slack as he is still a newbie. The guy wipes blood off his chin before saying Alan should have avoided it rather than just sit around and do nothing. Fiona stands and stares as she says that is kinda true. She then calls Sigrun by his name and thinks about how he now has become a handsome, sharp man before he asks her what. She then continues to ponder about Sigrun has become 19 and wonders if he is still going through puberty. She then tells him to apologize to Alan for scaring him. Sigrun then says that Abel told him to train the newbies, so it's Alan's fault if he got scared because of that. He then says besides as he swings his sword down and continues by saying that this is just the beginning anyways to the newbies' dismay. She then notes to herself that Abel says Sigrun gets along with others but for some reason not with her. Fiona then puts her hand on his chest and tells him to wait. She proceeds to tell the soldiers not to be nervous and says that she's sure they will improve soon as she was just like them when she started. A soldier then raises his hand asking if Fiona will be choosing a new soldier to be her escort. He continues asking that if he works hard, could he be chosen despite being a newbie. She then says, of course, and that she will be waiting for him, which causes the soldier to blush. Sigrun then grits his teeth in anger as he thinks about how Fiona is making an obvious move right in front of him. Fiona then thinks about how Sigrun should stop acting like this, as it will discourage the newbies. She notes that as time flies, she thinks Sigrun is slowly turning into Abel. She then talks about how 5 years have passed and the novel will begin soon. She is now 18 while Sigrun has turned 19, and they will both be a year older in a few months. Sigrun has kept his promise from years before, and just like in the original story, he learned swordsmanship from Abel and can now freely roam the castle. In this place, people are scared of his strength now, so they will not treat him thoughtlessly. Fiona, through this time, had been working on her plans to live a peaceful life. She had been making a lot of money from defending the walls and selling loot, so she never has to worry about making a living. She is now just waiting for Sigrun to meet Eunice, so they can take center stage as the main leads, so she can go off and live a comfortable life. The only issue is that there is a man standing in the way. We then see Abel, who is asking Fiona if she thought about his previous suggestion. She tells him, of course, as she notes that the biggest hindrance in her plan is Abel's suggestion. He then asks her to call him father, to which she lets out a side eye. His latest proposal was for Fiona to become his adopted daughter. She then tells him that she refuses, to which he tells her to at least consider it. She then continues that she has already had her life planned out since coming to Halen, which was to marry off Sigrun and then live a peaceful life. Abel then calls Sigrun a brat before he asks her if she is not interested in the Halen family's status, power, and wealth. She says she is not interested, to which Abel then says he'll do anything she wants if she accepts him as her father. She then notes about how the role would come with so much pressure before Abel comically tells her she is heartless and should pack her things and get out since she's grown up now. He then says if she doesn't want to call him father, then fine, as she has done a lot for him for 5 years and he is very grateful. She then questions if he contracted a disease talking like this all of the sudden, to which he tells her that this is embarrassing to say, so keep quiet and listen. He tells her that she chose to fight monsters at a young age, and the Halen region, which he is proud of, may be hell for her. He continues that Halen is more stable lately with less monsters and more soldiers like Sigrun, so if she would like to go somewhere, she is free to leave. He tells her she is an adult now, so she can do whatever she wants, and with her powers, she could live a great life of wealth and power in the capital. He then continues that if she does not want to be seen as an illegitimate child, she can take the Halen name so people won't treat her poorly. She then says this is so unexpected, to which he asks what, and she says that he is giving her such an offer. He tells her this is his way of paying her back for what she did, to which she asks wasn't she already given a wage before he asks her who she thinks he is? He only paid her for her labor, and this is a different matter. Fiona covers her mouth in shock as she didn't realize he was capable of kind thoughts and internally apologizes for thinking he never shed tears or blood. He then hands her a letter and tells her to take it before saying it is a letter from her home. She then realizes it is from Count Green and recalls when her brother forcibly volunteered her and her family, pushing her to the battlefield at a young age. She notes that this is the first letter they have sent her and wonders why they sent this now. Abel tells her he did not open it and tells her that if she wants, he can destroy them as he has uncovered many of their weaknesses. She then shouts that she is not burning for vengeance as she does not care before he responds, saying that if it were up to him, he'd remove them from existence without even a speck of dust. She then stares at the letter and tells herself that the original plotline must be about to start. She stares at the letter and notes to herself that the heroine will soon appear, so Fiona must leave Sigrun, as she would just be a burden. Fiona then tells Abel thank you for his suggestion, to which he says she should just call him father if she is grateful. She then says she refuses again, to which he then calls her a heartless brat again. She notes that he is grumpy today before getting to her room and having a full look at the letter. It was a letter requesting documentation to confirm Fiona's death. Count Green is currently in urgent care, so to deal with inheritance, documentation regarding Fiona's death is required. She facepalms herself before saying that her family didn't even think of the possibility she was still alive. She thinks about how she was a nuisance to them, so they sent her here to die and forget about it until they had to deal with inheritance. She tosses her paper and calls them a consistently terrible family. She does not care for the inheritance, nor does she want to return to her dying father, but to think this happened right as Abel told her to do what she wants. She thinks about how they'll be annoyed to find her still alive as on the green register. If her death is not confirmed by a document, her family will know she's alive. She wonders if she should just disclaim the inheritance before thinking about how Abel said he'd destroy them, to which she decides she does not want to invest emotions into something that happened 5 years ago. She cannot kill or harm her family herself as they are nobles unless she wants to go to jail. The only path left to sign the inheritance disclaimer and cut them off, which requires returning to her father's house. She thinks about how she's always wanted to visit them in the capital at least once before a knock is heard at the door. It is Sigrun who is asking if Fiona is there. The door opens as Fiona tells him to come in. He then tells her he is fine and will talk here, which causes her to frown. She recalls when a few years ago they were close enough to talk in bed together and about how Sigrun has been awkward since growing up. Sigrun says he heard from Abel before Fiona interrupts and tells him to call Abel master, which annoys him. Sigrun continues that the master said that Fiona might leave soon, to which she says maybe. Sigrun asks where she will go before Fiona says she received a letter saying her father is in critical condition, so she will go to the capital. Sigrun then asks why she still calls that guy father, to which Fiona thinks to herself about how she has no clue what else to call him. Sigrun asks if she will return after the guy dies, to which she says she'll be looking around the capital a little. She then says it's not like she hates Halen, to which Sigrun then asks when she will return. Fiona then thinks to herself about how Sigrun seems to have a misunderstanding before telling him that she does not plan to return, which shocks him. He shouts asking what she means, to which she again says she is not planning to return. He then asks why, to which she says there is no reason for her to be here anymore. She notes to herself that she's been Sigrun's close friend for 5 years to look after him, but now it's time for the original story to start, and she cannot do much for him anymore. Sigrun then moves forward, telling her to say that again, that she's really leaving, to which she says yeah. He then shouts, asking how she can suddenly decide this without warning, to which she says the Duke told her she can do what she wants as she is an adult now. Sigrun then curses Abel as Fiona tells him not to swear. Sigrun then leans over and asks if this is all she has to say to him after all the life and death situations that they have been through together over the last 5 years. Fiona says that he is upset, but she will write to him, to which Sigrun says that is not the issue. She then asks what the issue is, to which he says it is everything from the start. She then quietly calls his name and then wonders if he thought that they'd be together forever, as his face is covered in sadness. As he stands, she tells him that they are adults now, and thinks about how, as childhood friends, their roads would have to split eventually. Sigrun then turns and calls her a heartless woman, to which she tells him to call her a rational woman. He asks if she plans on staying in the capital, to which she says she is not sure, but just wants to be somewhere warm now. He tells her that he understands, to which she tells him she hopes he'll stop making that sad face. She stares at his eyes before wondering if Sigrun really believed that he'd spend forever with her. She then thinks that she can kind of understand his feelings about her going to the capital, as this is a place where many people want Sigrun dead. To him, it is his hometown, as well as the place he ran from. She puts her hands on his face and tells him to not be sad, and thinks about how in any case he'll come to the capital eventually if everything follows the original story. She then says that wherever he is, she will always be by his side, and that if he needs help in the future, he should let her know, as she will always be there for him. He then says what if he were to ask her to stay here with him now? She then smiles and says, "Accept that." Sigrun is silent for a moment before calling her contradictory. She then asks him why and mentions how it is important to have a friend who'll help in times of crisis. Sigrun then calls her name before asking Fiona what she thinks about him and leans over. She then tells him that he is the most precious person in the world. He then says that if that's the case, what would you do if I went somewhere? She then says of course she'd send him off and hope he has a safe trip and will run to him if he needs help since they are friends. That last part was like a stab in Sigrun's heart, as she basically just friend-zoned him. He rubs the blood off his chin as he tells her to forget it and that he was a fool for asking, which confuses her. Fiona then turns and mentions how cold it is and how she should wrap something around her. She looks through the cabinet, mentioning how she heard the maids washed the blankets. As she looks through the cabinet, she wonders where the maid put them, and he then steps right behind her and calls her name before giving her a big hug. She notes how strange this feels, and despite him just hugging her, it feels like he is trapping her. He tells her if she is going to leave this place, she should just stay in the capital. He then says that after thinking about it, this isn't new, as she has been like this since they met. He then tells her that no matter where she is, he will run to her no matter what. As Sigrun stands behind her, Fiona thinks back to when Sigrun made a promise similar to this one. He holds a strand of her hair before telling her to please wait for him in the capital. She then stares as he leaves and shuts the door behind him. A few months later, we see maids and servants standing on the street. A carriage draws closer as Abel and Fiona are seen standing and staring. Abel asks Fiona if that is all she will bring, to which she says she is not a person that keeps a lot of things. Abel notes that a lot of people are seeing her off, but not the brat Sigrun, before Fiona tells him that he was sad she was leaving. Abel asks if he said anything else, to which Fiona says that Sigrun told her he would visit. Abel reaches for something as he says that is just like Sigrun. He then hands her a letter of introduction. He tells her to use it when she wants to stay in the Halen mansion in the capital, and that her bonus this time was higher due to it being her last time. He then jokingly says that he's not sure it will be the last, to which she says, "Ugh," in annoyance. She then steps on the carriage and then tells him thank you for everything as they both stare. He then tells her sure as he lets out a grin. As the horse stride off, the maids say goodbye to Lady Fiona and that they will miss her. Fiona is then confused as she stares at Abel. He then words with his mouth from outside the window, "Fi-o-na," as she wonders if he is trying to say something. He tells her that they will see each other again, which annoys Fiona. She then leans back in the carriage and wishes people would give her a break and that she doesn't know what's wrong with everyone. The carriage then goes past the open gate. Someone tells Zen that they both know their father is in a coma. Kaindel continues that the doctor said there is a small chance he will wake up, so they should prepare their hearts for the news. He continues that currently the issue is that their father never wrote a formal will. Kaindel then slams the desk and says that since this has happened, he should be the one to decide the inheritance, as he is the first son and heir to the family. Zen then chuckles as he tells his brother that he is very funny. He asks if there is a law that says that only the first son can succeed the family. He says that the Greens are a family of mages, so the most powerful one should be the successor. This angers Kaindel, who asks Zen if he thinks he is a better mage than him. Zen tells him that this is obvious, as he can wield many magic spells, including the only magic Kaindel knows, which is barely enough to make a bonfire. Kaindel tells Zen he is a loser for talking back to his brother without knowing how hard it is for him, and tells him to leave the house. Zen asks why should he leave, and says that the one who's a shame to the House of Mages should leave. As a girl stands outside, Kaindel continues to yell at him as the lady then goes to open the door. It is Countess Green who says she cannot believe the two brothers are fighting over this and that she'd be embarrassed if rumors spread about these two. Kaindel yells, telling his mom to look at what Zen said and did to him, to which Zen says that's better than looking at the incompetent brother who'll run the family. The mom shouts, asking what did Zen just say, before saying this is enough. She tells them that she does not want to see them argue carelessly as soon as she opens her eyes. She tells them she will handle the family assets and that they should not quarrel about it anymore. Zen then says to hold on, and that even the mother has no right to handle the inheritance, which causes her to again question what he just said. He then continues that he's noticed their mother has a lover, which infuriates her. He continues saying that he knows she sends that lover money and is worried that she'll give that man all the family assets. The Countess asks Zen if this is how he talks to the person that birthed him. Kaindel then tells his mom not to be upset, as they do not care about what kind of guy she met. Zen then mentions as he sips tea that if rumors spread about this, their mother would be hurt, as she clenches her fan angrily at her two sons. A knock then occurs at the door as someone calls for the madame and two young masters. The madam angrily asks what to, which the butler says that a guest has arrived and that they should go greet them. The Countess asks who the hell it is, to which the butler says the guest is someone who went to Halen 5 years ago named Fiona Green. This shocks the two brothers and the mother. Kaindel slams the desk, saying that this is impossible and questions if she's actually alive. Zen then says he's sure this is an imposter, as how could a 13-year-old survive the North's battlefield? He then says he knows she can't even do basic magic, so how is this possible? He recalls Count Green brought her in as an illegitimate child, but she was useless and was left in the attic. She was the small child they all decided to push out to fulfill the Emperor's order. Zen recalls no one felt guilty about this, though, as the mother tells the butler to get her out of here. As the Countess calls it a fake, Fiona appears, saying the Countess is being excessive. The butler tries to tell Fiona she cannot enter here, as Fiona steps in the room, saying finally. The three a-holes are in shock, as Zen says this must be a lie. Fiona then says that after a long journey she's come back like this. She tells them she got the letter asking for death confirmation, but decided to just come here instead since she thought everyone would enjoy it. She claps her hand together before saying the cute youngest has arrived after a long time and will be welcomed warmly, right? She then says she's glad from the bottom of her heart that her family has not changed, as she then smiles. Chirps can be heard from out the window as Fiona lays in bed thinking about how unfamiliar this feels. As she wakes up, she realizes this is not Halen Castle but the Count's mansion. She notes that she is fortunate they have given her a room and would have made a scene if they gave her the attic. She also notes that the stunned look on their faces yesterday gave her so much satisfaction. She then stretches in bed as she notes her family seem to be fighting for the inheritance, and she does not wish to get involved. She decides to just sign her inheritance disclaimer and leave tomorrow as someone knocks at the door. Someone says they brought a wash basin as she tells them to come in. A small bucket is then placed on the table as Fiona then says thank you. She then notes to herself the mage should be careful as some water has splashed out. She then notes that the Halen maids never made this mistake. She then wonders why the water is so dirty and why there is a bad smell. She then stares directly at it and realizes that it is mop water. Narrator comment here, this girl better throw some hands right now. Fiona is in disbelief that they'd give mop water and be so petty and obvious. She spent 5 years in battle for them and asks if this is too much. She then hears some laughter and proceeds to look up. The maid is openly laughing at Fiona before Fiona looks at her and thinks about how she's seen her before. She then remembers that she saw this face 5 years ago. She recalls that this is the Countess maid that would always harass Fiona for being an illegitimate child. Fiona now realizes what is happening. She had let her guard down as they had given her a room, and with this type of conduct, this means they still see her as a useless child. She then touches the bowl and thinks these people must be living in a delusion. Even with money and a place to return to, they still see her as a 13-year-old half-blood with no power. After seeing how they welcomed her desire for revenge has reignited. She then thinks about how the real young Fiona must have suffered and decides to not leave it like this. Fiona then asks for the maid's name, to which she confidently says it is May. Fiona then says that this is a face she remembers seeing now. She notes to herself that the maid is looking her dead in the eye, which is usually not acceptable in other noble households. Fiona thinks she is acting so confidently due to being in the Countess's favor, and notes that the Countess always hated her, and with the inheritance at stake must see Fiona as a thorn now. Fiona believes the whole family feels that way and doesn't want a lowly, illegitimate child to take even one jewel. As May stands in silence, she wonders what's with the boring reaction, and if the stupid child even knows she's being mocked. She thinks to herself that she'll make Fiona understand and mess with her to the point where she'll cry. May continues thinking that Fiona wants to return and leech some money, but May decides to not let that happen. She thinks this is her chance to strengthen her trust with the madam and will make Fiona understand that there is no place for her in this family. Fiona then calls her name and smiles, saying she knows what her intentions are. May asks what she is talking about. Fiona then covers her face and trembles, which makes May wonder if Fiona is already crying and if she deluded herself into thinking she was a real noble. Fiona then lets go of her face before throwing a thunderous slap into the female dog's face. May, in shock, wonders if Fiona just slapped her right now and wonders if this is really the same Fiona locked in the attic. Fiona then says that it's just like she said yesterday and that she's glad her family has not changed. May shouts, asking what Fiona thinks she's doing before Fiona shouts May's name. She asks May if she knows what mistake she made. May thinks about how it is strange that the illegitimate child is only smiling, yet she feels such breathtaking fear right now. May then shouts that it is Fiona who will get in trouble for this, and that she will report this to the Countess right away. She continues saying that once the Countess hears this before getting another smack. Fiona then says she asked May what her mistake was, and what did May bring to her. The maid mutters some words as Fiona stares in silence. The flames in the room get wilder as the windows rattle and the curtains flap viciously. The chandelier swings as it creaks before May falls to the floor, wondering what this is. Fiona stares down, asking what May is doing and why she is not answering her before again asking what was her mistake. Fiona then continues that if May won't talk, they can have a conversation the Halen way, where maids who make fun of their master get their tongues cut off. Fiona then asks what punishment does the capital give as May sits trembling. Fiona then touches her face, saying that since May won't reply, she'll have to get her tongue cut off like in Halen, to which May starts sobbing and saying that she is sorry. Fiona then asks her, "Who am I?" to which May says she is Lady Fiona of the Green family, before Fiona asks her what May should be doing. May then bows down and says she won't be impudent again, to which Fiona says very well. May then wonders to herself if that sensation has gone away before standing up to go report this to the Countess. She begins to run as she is sure the Madame will take this matter into her own hands. Fiona then asks May where she is going while carrying the bowl in her hand, and then tells May that she still has to take care of this. May turns around in shock as water drops down her face. The bowl then clatters on the floor as Fiona tells her to keep in mind that she'll pay severely if she does things like this again. She then opens the door and says that she hopes May finally understands before slamming the door on the wet maid. Fiona then says whoops as she realizes she lost her temper as she lets out a deep breath. She then realizes that Sigrin is right when he said she loses her temper easily. As she walks down the stairs, she thinks that she was actually pretty mild-mannered then. She thinks that this would not have happened if they did not cause this, and about how her family really does not change as they are consistently the worst. Fiona then hears someone say that Fiona must have a lot of free time wandering around without permission. She then turns to see Count Green's wife. Fiona asks what is the problem with her wandering around her home, to which the Countess asks if this is her home. The Countess then calls Fiona deluded, as Fiona internally decides to hit the Countess at least once. The Countess tells her to throw away her nonsensical dreams and leave this place as she is like a rat clinging to someone else's food. Fiona stands trying to endure this and not go all out. Fiona then finally decides that there really is no reason to endure this, and that this fight was her fault, and that Fiona has put up with this for long enough. The Halen motto is to fight without hesitation, but Fiona knows she'll be here longer if she attacks them as she wants. However, she has made her mind up on something before saying thank you to the Countess. Fiona smiles as she says she has decided to properly thank the Countess. The Madam turns and asks what. Fiona thinks about how she did not want anything to do with the Greens, so she was just going to sign the inheritance disclaimer and organize the family register. She then notes that she saw enough from the maids and can see through the Countess's intentions. Fiona tells the Countess that she herself will not leave this place with a single jewel, so the Countess should not worry. Fiona then smiles as she thinks about how she won't leave any jewels for the Countess either, and about how the family is so greedy. The Countess flinches as she sees Fiona is smiling, before Fiona vaguely says that she plans on throwing away everything in this house and leaving. On that day, Fiona sent Abel a letter with the contents being simple. She asked him about the severance pay he mentioned, and if she could have it now. Abel notes that this came sooner than he thought it would, before he mentions how Fiona has a soft spot. He notes that he expected this, but regardless, Fiona is a strange child. He continues thinking about how she's been strange as a child till now. Even though she's normally kind and sweet as candy, she can be cold and firm as well. Someone says they are here to see the master, to which Abel tells them to come in. Sigrun says he came as soon as Abel called, despite not knowing what it was. Abel tells him to stop testing his patience and that a letter came in from Fiona. Sigrun reads it and mentions it's just business, to which Abel says Sigrun is moody because the letter isn't about him. Sigrun says he does not have those expectations, but it doesn't matter now since he's going to visit her. Abel says fine before reminding Sigrun about what Sigrun said of the royal family not wanting him years ago. Sigrun then mentions he remembers Abel asking about it and about how he would feel if they recognized him as a prince. Abel responds by saying that Sigrun did not have a reply to that question then. Sigrun says that is true before Abel says that it seems Sigrun has made his decision now. He then tells Sigrun that if he wants to return to the capital, he must accomplish something great, as he is nothing but an illegitimate child right now. With Halen by his side and a big accomplishment, Sigrun can be someone that the capital citizens can cheer for. Abel tells him that the accomplishment needs to be something to establish the existence of Prince Sigrun, such as saving countless people by catching the king of monsters in Halen's fief. Abel says that if Sigrun meets his conditions, he'll set the stage for Sigrun. Abel tells him that if he wants to reclaim his seat as prince, he needs to go be a hero. Abel is then seen writing a letter telling Fiona he will do as she wishes, but when he is done, she should go look around the Halen estate. As Fiona reads this, she notes that it is a relief he is not telling her to say father. She notes that this is not because she hates him, but it's because he was enemies with Fiona in the original story, and is too sweet now. Fiona then stretches as she notes she'll finally get to rest once this is all over. Original story will start soon with Abel and Sigrun returning to the castle after Sigrun slays the accrued dragon of the north. He will be praised as a hero, and due to public opinion and the imperial family's honor, he will be made into a prince. Then right after the female lead, Eunice will make her appearance as Fiona wonders what she will be like and hopes to meet her once. Fiona is worried due to how Sigrun constantly relied on her, so there is no telling what the future holds. She then stares at the letter again and thinks about the important matter at hand. The Green family's weak point is their involvement in the drug trade, as Fiona wonders how to use this. A lot of the Green's assets were made from this trade, and since this is illegal, the money will get confiscated by the Empire. Everyone involved, including their family, will be punished as well. An issue is that Zen and the Countess both seem unaware of this, as Fiona wonders what she should do. She burns the letter as she wonders if she should shake up the ones who are currently most driven into a corner. Zen is shocked as he asks what Fiona is doing in his room. She calls him brother, as she says she has to tell him an issue regarding the family heir. He tells her she has no right to be concerned with that before she tells him she wants him to be the next count. She continues that as a family of mages, the best should be the heir. However, Caindel is claiming the position as he is the oldest son. Fiona knows that Zen is in trouble as well since he has a large gambling debt. Because of this, he is aiming to get the inheritance to pay off his bills. But the truth was, Abel actually bought this debt a while back, and before she left Halen, he gave Fiona the right to handle it. She thinks to herself that this is a secret still before asking if her brother agrees with her. Zen grabs his head as he says everything Fiona is saying is right, and that it's ridiculous for an unqualified person to be heir. Zen then continues that Caindel has been the heir for a long time before Fiona calls for her brother. She pulls a red pouch from her pocket and says that this was in the eldest brother's room and asks if he knows what this is. As the pouch is opened, Zen shouts what they are. Fiona says the servants found this in his room as she covers her face, saying that the family is involved in this illegal trade. Zen lets out a smile as he says Fiona found something valuable, and thanks to her, everything will work out smoothly. He then asks her which servant found this, to which Fiona says before she tells him that she has a request for him. She tells him that if he inherits the family, to please remove her from the family register. Zen is speechless before he asks what. He asks if this will put her at a disadvantage, to which she says she came home to do this. She says that everyone thinks she's here for inheritance, but she actually just wants to see everyone face one last time. She then says that being illegitimate and scorned by the family, she has had enough of it. She then says in an Oscar-worthy performance that most importantly, she is an inconvenience to the family, and this saddens her as she only cares about the family. Zen covers his mouth in shock before saying he understands and will set her free as Fiona insults him in her mind. Fiona then says she will tell him the name of the servant who found this. Truth is, a servant finding this was a lie. She actually paid off a servant to search Kaindel's room and bribed them to testify to Zen that they randomly found this while cleaning, and also that Fiona coincidentally saw this. As Fiona sips tea, she wonders if she should listen in on them as things went as she predicted. Kaindel and Zen are both again arguing about the inheritance, with the fights increasing as the day passes. The Countess won't come home now due to all this, and Zen has already begun to spread rumors about Kaindel's misdeeds. The rumors have spread like fire as subsidiary families have begun to question Kaindel's qualifications. Eventually, Kaindel got banished from the family as he cursed at Zen. With the brothers' fight now wrapping up, it is finally Fiona's turn. Inside, a letter contains documents accusing the Greens of running an illegal business, which she will be sending to the finance department, which will be much like removing the last block in Jenga. The tower will be completely destroyed. Another letter has arrived from Abel, to which Fiona notes how this one came pretty quickly after the last letter. Abel asks her if this business of hers has still not been finished yet. Fiona crumbles this paper in fiery anger before laying down and thinking if Abel finds toppling noble families easy. She had just sent the anonymous letter to the finance department, and if the contents are verified, the Greens' assets will be confiscated. Since they have considerable assets, the department will find this to be a good opportunity to fill up the treasury. 2 days later, we see Fiona congratulating her brother on becoming the head of the family. He tells her that this is only temporary for now, before Fiona asks who else would it be other than him, to which that strokes his ego. She pulls out a document and tells him she will be removed from the family if she gets the stamp. He immediately stamps the paper and tells her to leave now as he has a ton of work to do, while we see Fiona deviously smiling. Fiona then says she has one last thing to tell Zen. She places her hand on the table before saying that there's no recovering from a gambling addiction, and especially once debt has been acquired. Zen angrily asks her how she knows about this before she waves from the door saying goodbye. She slams the door as he shouts her name. She is humming as she did not expect herself to be in such a good mood. Someone then shouts her name, which is the Countess, asking why Fiona is still here. She calls her shameless and tells her to not even think about taking advantage of her brother and leaving as she opens the door for Fiona. Fiona tells her she was leaving regardless of the Countess rushing her, but then says she now remembers that there is something she must do before leaving. As the Countess begins to shout something as Fiona's hand is incoming, the Countess's hat comes flying off with a smack. The hat and stone drop to the floor along with the Countess as May shouts for her master. The Countess asks how dare Fiona do this, to which she says she wanted to hit the Countess at least once before going. Fiona then says Kaindel is banished without a penny. Zen will have debt his whole life, so the Countess has to at least get a slap for it to be fair. The Countess asks what nonsense Fiona is spewing before saying Fiona has lost her mind and should get locked up. Suddenly, another maid comes in saying there's a big problem. The Countess asks if the maid can see the situation right now and tells her to lock up Fiona. The maid then tells her that the Imperial Army has gathered outside the house right now and that they said they are here on Imperial orders. The Countess is in shock as May covers her mouth. Fiona then notes that they came a lot quicker than she thought. Fiona then asks if Madame knew the kind of business Kaindel and Count Green were involved in. Fiona then tells her that she has reported this information to the palace. Fiona then tells the Countess that she should already know that all assets get moved to the treasury if they are illegally obtained, which shocks the Countess as she screams at Fiona to not lie since she can't escape without punishment either. Fiona then tells her that she's not actually a member of the family as she flexes the paper Zen stamped. She then says her lack of involvement also means a lack of responsibility as the Countess grimly says no way. The Countess says that the family showed her kindness raising her, yet she repays them with evil, to which Fiona says she was planning to let it go. However, when she thought about it again, human kindness should have appeared 5 years ago, and that applies to the Countess as well before handing the fallen stone to the Countess. Fiona tells her to cherish these things, as she may never see them again. A soldier then comes in the door saying they found Countess Green, and then telling her of the report made. As Fiona walks away, she notes the finance department is working hard before remembering a character from that department, loving money. Fiona then decides to go to the Halen townhouse as her brother shouts, saying he just got to be the head of the family and for the soldier to let go of him. A sword then falls on the snow as Sigrun covers his face, saying this dragon didn't control the northern region's monster for no reason. He notes that out of all the monsters he's faced, this was the most troublesome as he leans on the dragon's body.